Having 7 members of the committee in order of quorum, I now call the meeting to order at 5:36 p.m. 15:36. You take attendance?
I don't usually, but I can. We don't have Bill Cornisher here. We have Ed Bradley in person.
Yes.
Sullivan, Betty Cavaco is remote. We have John Mahoney remote. Karen Bukes in person, Tim Grandy, and Russ Shirley and Karen Edwards are absent.
Excuse me.
I said, you're here.
I'm here.
I did. I said Tim
Yeah.
Grandy's doing it.
I think in the minutes, when we get to the minutes, you have the absence, but then voting, I was there that night, so when we get there.
You will be correct. Yeah, that was the
Oh,
next.
for the minutes? Okay, let me take a note of that when it comes up, please. I can change that. I have another administrative note for the minutes.
Okay, well, that's next order of business, the adoption of the minutes from May 23rd, 2024. Did you have a chance to review?
I
them?
did, so moved.
Second,
One correction,
Mr. Grant, you have the correction?
yes, I think it marks me as absent, but I was there that evening and voted. Later on in the minutes, shows me as voted.
Okay.
You were here.
Reorganization that evening.
These were for the May 23rd minutes.
The night we appointed our new chair and vice chair.
That would have been, no, this is the May 23rd, the meeting prior to that.
You were still here.
I think I was. Okay.
He was here.
And I have a
So
motion,
moved.
a second?
second,
I'll just wait for Betty. We'll take a. Len, oh, no, Len, you weren't here, correct? Betty? Betty, do you agree?
I think you're gonna have to turn the owl up or get it closer or something.
No, it's fine.
On the minutes from May 23rd,
Yes,
John Mahoney,
Yes,
Tim Grandy,
Yes,
Karen Dukes,
Yes.
and Len and I weren't here, so we won't vote. So we have adopted those minutes from May 23rd of 2024. Now for the adoption of the minutes from June 13th of 2024, and Chelsea had an admin note.
And so Karen Edwards reached out to me towards the end of the minutes for 6:13. I'm going to add a discussion section. I didn't put in her comments regarding her leaving the committee, and she'd like me to add that, so that would be amended. If you could just, through the chair, when the motion's made to accept, acknowledge that the minutes will be changed to reflect the admin note.
Any questions from the committee? The motion?
So
motion,
Second, okay. And we will be adopting these minutes with the change as noted by Chelsea about Karen Edwards.
And is being present and Tim being present. They're doing
We'll do that
6:13,
one too.
right? We're doing 6:13?
6:13, yeah, Tim was here, yeah. Okay, then. Len,
Yes.
Karen Dukes,
Yes.
Betty Cavaco,
yes,
John Mahoney,
yes,
Tim Grandy,
yes.
and myself, yes. So we have adopted those minutes, and they will be edited as noted. Is there anyone here for public comment?
Yeah.
Mr. Gazi.
Thank you. Tom Fugazi.
Yeah, I think you can stand right by the table so you can hear.
Oh, gotta stand here?
Yeah, that's.
Talking to the big microphone.
All right, thank you. Tom Fugazi. You've all heard about the select board has reinitiated this nuisance bylaw, which I think is a great thing. And every time that comes up, this conversation regarding birds, and obviously we all know birds is a disgrace, something needs to be done. But right across the street is the fish shanties, which you people have been involved in for a number of years. I've had numerous conversations with the former chairman about we're gonna do this, we're gonna replace them, we're gonna fix them, we're gonna do what? Which is great, I support that, but I really think you either gotta decide you're gonna go forward with it, or decide it's not worth doing, and advise the town that you're no longer interested in tearing them down. I can't imagine the town putting pressure on an adjacent property to do something with its own property right next door is in shambles. It's a mess. One of those buildings burned about 6 years ago. The pile of rubble is still sitting there on the ground. So I just ask you to take some action, whatever it is.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I was under the impression that the plantation protects and owns that land. Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
I don't believe so. Those were connected to the lobster industry.
Right,
They were sold over a period of time to the various proprietors.
Yes,
of the
I think they're
lobster
town owned.
okay, thanks, Benny, okay.
And I believe that they are town property. We went through that several years ago, who owned them, what was it, and it was determined the town owns them now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Excuse me, was there an application for that? Way back, right? Before I was on the committee. So is it possible that I send a
Somebody-
copy of the application?
In the past, the town they've had somebody there, the CPC has had somebody there working on those buildings, so boarding them up, securing them. But in the past 4 or 5 years, since one burn, there's nothing going on. The one that was the bait house is almost completely gone. And the one that may be salvageable, I don't know, but we just have to make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yeah.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes, John, hold on just 1 minute. I neglected to make an announcement at the beginning of the meeting. I'll make it now. There is a member of the press that has remoted into this meeting and is reporting that, for the public, the newspaper. Fred Dyes is here, just so that everyone in the room knows that this is being recorded by the press. Mr. Mahoney.
I just want to, Mr. Fugazi is completely 100% correct. One way or the other, we have to bring some finality to this issue. And I would just suggest that at a future meeting, it's an agenda item.
I was gonna ask if there was a motion to put that on our next meeting as an agenda item to
I'll
discuss
say that, please put that on the agenda
The
for
history synopsis?
discussion.
with some history.
With some
on it.
history, Chelsea,
Chelsea, can you check and see if there's any information that that we had gone through on CPC within the last few years, because it might, I mean, we may be able to vote on it and put it out for bid for demolition if it's already been brought up, because I do remember it being discussed a few times, actually.
Okay, I can look into that.
Okay. Maybe we'll place that as an agenda item on our next meeting, and we will do some research in between. I can probably help you get some dates, because I do remember the fires and the dates, and there were some news articles on
I
it
would.
at the
There's two
time.
chiefs here.
Yes, yeah, two chiefs, no way. Is there anyone else for public comment? Anyone on remote for public comment? Okay, if not, we will move to our presentations. We have one tonight for affordable housing, Micro Incorporated, and Rick Vale, the president, is here to make a quick presentation and answer any of the board members' questions. Mr. Vale.
Hi, thank you for having me in tonight. I'm about to
Thank you for
disconnect
coming
you. I do not have an electronic version of it, as I just told Chelsea, a little technical difficulty before I left the office. I did bring some other printed copies, but I think it's the same as what you were probably all given at some point. I don't know if anyone needs one.
I'll take a look.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway.
If we have it, we'll make sure that it stays with the meeting.
Okay.
It's been submitted.
So as you know, Meg Ryko has, I guess, partnered with the CPC and Affordable Housing Trust on a number of projects in town for affordable housing. I think we have, created to date, approximately 72 units of voluntary affordable housing, which I think is more than probably all other developers combined. I think we have a model that works extremely well in that partnership, in that, we provide a certain level of expertise and a certain level of funding, and that, coupled with the CPC and or Affordable Housing Trust, has, I think, done some great things. All of the complexes we've created to date are fully occupied. We manage them all. If you were to drive by one, you'd have no idea whether it was affordable housing, whether it was market rate, or whether it was luxury housing. And I think that's the overall goal. So on that note, affordable housing right now, I think over the next few years is going to become an even more precarious situation, because land in Plymouth that is zoned appropriately is a very rare commodity. I mean, ideally, we'd like to put, the multi-unit buildings on what zoned is MF, multifamily. There's very little of it left, and what is left is in most cases getting scooped up by developers for very large projects. So we've sort of turned our attention to smaller lots in town to see if we can, find pockets that we can add more affordable housing. I think, from our perspective, those smaller developments work even better than some of the larger ones. I think they're in some cases easier to run, easier to manage, they're more personal. I think people in some cases take them more as homes than apartments, and it works out well. There's still a great need in town, although we've done a fair amount of one-bedroom apartments. There's still a great need, is the most need that we see across the probably 400 apartments that we either own or manage, is the one bedroom, and specifically in the affordable category. So this opportunity that we have is at 131, 133. I believe it's one lot, but the town can't seem to tell me what the actual number is, so I'm going with both of them for the moment. It's one lot, is directly across from the library, adjacent to the nursing home. I think it's a perfect spot. I think we can build a building that fits Plymouth there, and fits the neighborhood and the streetscape along that plane, and certainly improve what's there now. It would be a 24-unit building, all one bedroom, similar in design in terms of the units to all the projects we've done in the past, which are the vinyl plank, hardwood flooring, very nice cabinetry, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, everything you would expect in any market rate apartment that you're walking into. Obviously, as you know, it's almost impossible to do affordable housing now without some sort of partnership, and that's why we're here tonight, is to talk with the CPC. And honestly, we would have brought the Affordable Housing Trust into it as well, if a couple of the things that they had sort of in the works, if you will, hadn't fallen through. I think the Claremont project was set to give Affordable Housing Trust a fair amount of money, and that sort of fell through the cracks. Was unfortunate. They were left in a position where they don't look like they'll probably have a tremendous amount of funding available for the next few years. So we looked at this, we looked at the finances, we proposed something that's right along the lines of all the other projects we've done. I actually met with Lynn, because I did want to get, I'm not going to say the finance department's blessing, but insight into, does this make sense? Are these workable numbers? And I don't want to speak for Lynn, but I think it was a positive meeting on how that could be handled. We would propose in this scenario, looking for support from the CPC committee. If that took place, we would then go through the permitting process, have that completed, again, assuming the board's saw it favorably. We would have that completed before town meeting and be ready to, present to either precincts and or town meeting this proposal. So I could probably ramble on here for another 45 minutes. I'm going to stop, see if there's any questions. before Tim reaches over and slaps me. He does that a lot at the planning board meetings, so,
Are there any questions from the members?
I think this is great. Clear up the confusion that was at town meeting, and I'm sure you had nothing to do with that.
well, so we were attached to it, so I'm not gonna say we had nothing to do with it. I think it was an unfortunate situation, and I know Bill took the fall for it, if you will. It was certainly not intentional from, I don't believe from, I'm not gonna put words in Bill's mouth, but from Bill's perspective, it was a mistake. I think, you know, we were quite clear in what we had. I think, somewhere there was some confusion that two things. One, the count, which I think was clear from the beginning, but somehow that got convoluted along the way. You know, if you look at our application, it was what it was supposed to be. And then the second piece with the condos, that they didn't apply to the overall count. I think ultimately, it was just someone didn't dig enough to find out if that was the case, and it was unfortunate, and I certainly hope that the precincts, you know, recognize that, and my pitch to that would be, if you were for affordable housing, then you should be for it now. We look at the, you know, the SHI to some extent, but at the end of the day, all I really care about is creating a unit that someone can move into. Whether we're getting credit for other units or whatever, chances are the town is never reaching that goal, right? All my hope is
Don't
that.
stop us from trying.
Well, and I'm not, I think I've been a big proponent of it, but my point being is that some projects that benefit the SHI are great, but at the end of the day, the most important project is one that just puts an affordable unit available for someone as quick as possible. And that's how we look at it.
About increasing or lowering the percentage we already have in town,
Sure,
right?
sure. Absolutely.
This is 24 units.
This is 24 units, you get credit for 24 units. That's it, it's very cut and dry. Now, oh, go ahead.
I asked a couple of questions.
That's fine, on the.
There's two different options here when you're looking at the AMI. It's showing at 80% AMI, 3,600,000, and at 60% at 4,800,000. Where are we gonna find it?
Well, so in my opinion, and this is strictly in my opinion, you should go with the lower number. You should go with the 80 AMI at the 3.6. I say that because we manage a tremendous amount of apartments and we see what the needs are. If someone has a voucher, it doesn't really matter what the AMI is. And typically, when you get down into those lower categories, there is a voucher attached to it. So even if it's 80 AMI and someone has a voucher, they can get into that unit.
So,
Wait, well, let me just finish
are you
that thought.
telling me that both these percentages are gonna be available within these 24? Or is it gonna be one of them?
You have to make a choice.
Right,
I understand.
or there's a third option. You could do some split in the middle, but let me just finish that, the logic of what I was saying is that. So if we go to 60 AMI, generally speaking, the only person who can qualify for those apartments, because the windows become so narrow, is someone with a voucher, which is great, but there's a whole other faction of people that lose out. The younger person who has.
The same falls true with the 80. So.
Well, not as much, because the other group cannot qualify at 60%, so they're cut out completely. At the 80, if you have the voucher, you're not cut out.
But there is the option of these 24 to say 12 and 12, or
Absolutely, and what I would propose to
10
that,
15, or whatever the case may be.
what I would propose to that is that you go with the 80 right now at, well, not right now, but you know what I mean, at 3.6. And come back at the spring, and we would leave the option open that if at any point before occupancy, the CPC wanted to, or Affordable Housing Trust, if they got an option that they had more funding to buy additional units down to 60, we would honor that, and we would go along with that anywhere before occupancy. So you'd have another year to do that, actually potentially 2 other town meetings. So it leaves some flexibility depending on how funding's going at CPC and also how Affordable Trust, because I know Kathy Dunn, is very much in favor of more units at 60%.
Not to vary from this discussion here, but I was under the impression we were gonna hear exactly where we are balance wise with funding available.
We have time,
Excuse me?
we have time.
I know we have time, but I'm wondering if we're gonna
She's
hear
gonna-
that.
yes.
Yes?
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
But we're discussing funding here right now.
Yeah, so what I would recommend is that you listen to all the applications this evening, have all the presenters present. You ask questions, get your questions answered, and then we take in all their information. Once we close our books for fiscal 24, which happens June 30th is this weekend. So within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to come back and give you more fine-tuned numbers.
Sure.
For, available balances, what anticipated revenues look like. And then you would make a vote on recommending to town meeting at a later date. And we recommend doing that at the meeting of July 20, what was it, 20 something? It was your second meeting in July. 27th?
25th,
What is it?
11th and 25th, in the next.
The 25th. That would be our recommendation, is you do it the night, of July 25th. And you can discuss them at other meetings,
That's what I
but
want to get to here, because taking into consideration some funding here. What's available will make a difference.
sure, so you're not making a decision tonight, but we can present all the financial information to you. So
That's great, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I kind of.
Rick,
Tim, you all set?
Yes, sir, I am, thank
Len
you.
has a question?
Hi, Rick. My name's Len Levin. I'm the newest member, one of the newest members of the EPC. So I have a couple of questions about this. Can you tell me what the actual rent would be at the different AMIs?
So I can tell you what it would be at 80. I don't off the top of my head know the 60. The 80, the maximum allowable rent is approximately $2,300, which is a lot, obviously. I'm not sure that's affordable, but that's what they call affordable. Ultimately, once you back out the utilities and whatnot, that number comes down to about 2140. Now, we do not always charge the maximum allowable. If you looked at all of our affordable housing projects to date, I do not believe there are any units at maximum affordable rate at the moment. So we try to stay as far down as we can.
What's on that? I'm looking at the map right now on my computer. There appears to be, there's a building on that land?
So there's a 2-family that's a condos now.
So you're buying that?
We do, we have it under agreement.
Okay, and then there appears to be another house that's abutting the property on Braley Lane.
Yeah,
It looks like it's their garage and then their house.
yeah.
So is that basically you're bumping into a difference in zoning between that house and where you're planning to build it?
I believe Braley Lane, as you go up, still is multifamily.
Okay. Okay. I know we're not gonna vote on the thing, but I would be interested if you could tell me, based on the amount of money you're asking relative to the cost of the development versus some other things that were recently done in this town. I'll put my business hat on that I wear pretty much all the time and ask you, what's the value proposition to the town to do this from a financial standpoint? And from a, I don't know what that 24 will do to our safe harbor. But just help us understand what's the value proposition at either the 3.6 million or the 4.8 million.
So again, I would personally recommend the 3.6 for now. I don't think we get any more credit for the 60, although that's not the motivating factor. But I think the need is the greatest at the 80 and it can match both in that. That said, So a number of people, when I first came with this proposal, said, well, you know, how does this compare to the Redbird model? Because that was done most recently, and this board and others seem to like that. And I wanted to point out, because it seems like, and don't get me wrong, I think the Redbird was a great project and probably will come out extremely well and be well managed. But the value isn't quite what it seems. In other words, the CPC, it sort of appeared out there that we're buying 62 units. And those units were already mandated to be built by the 40B. So if the CPC had said, we're not providing any funding, they would have been built at 80% AMI, you would have the same unit count. What the difference was, is that the CPC bought down the AMI too. So it's a little different model.
And gained 10 additional units in the process.
Negotiated those. It wasn't necessarily part of the
Include that when you
CPC.
mentioned in the deal that was going on.
Right, there was no real numbers put to it, so it was hard to discern how the 10
Completely separate.
yeah factored in. But my point being is that was an article, an application that came forward to buy down the units that had to be built. We're proposing units that without CPC support would never get built. And it's not because I don't want to or someone else doesn't want to, it's just because the economics just don't work. You know, it's honestly hard enough to build a market rate apartment right now without some sort of either federal, you know, funding, or that you're building 400 units at a time, you know, and you've got, you know, some fund behind you that's willing to accept a 3 cap or a 4 cap. So without the CPC, these, or affordable housing trust, these don't exist. And so what we've tried to do is in our mind, make it the value in is that you're creating something that cannot be created otherwise in town. And I think the proof of that is that literally no one else is doing this. I mean, there's just no one willing to say, we do it for a few reasons. One, we do a lot of very nice projects in town and a lot of high-end projects in town. We think it's very important that we support the community at all levels, number one. Number two, we know it's a need of Plymouth, and that all the boards from the top all the way down support affordable housing. So we try to be on the same page with that. Number three, we have the infrastructure in place to manage these after the fact, which honestly is 70% of the battle. Because if you just come in and bang these out, and then you don't manage them properly, and you don't know the affordable housing rules, they turn into disasters, quite frankly.
So, sorry, is there any opportunity to build more units in that space by going up?
Well, I think we try to balance out, because we have to come in front of someone like Mr. Grandy, who's going to make sure that this fits into the neighborhood. So we try to look at the neighborhood and say, look, at 2 stories is really all we could go. The density on an acre is really pushing the limits of where we would want to go. But that said, it is zone multifamily, and there are very dense housing, you know, meaning nursing homes and I think the elderly housing right beside it. So the zoning makes sense and the density makes sense, but I would not propose to go up another level because I just don't think it fits the neighborhood.
I'm sure his group has already done the research to see what you can put on that piece of property.
So,
I'm sure you've done the research to see what you could put and maximize on that.
yeah, sure, you could do a 3-story
Done.
building, but I don't think it would be.
We're not discussing a 3-story building.
No, I'm just asking the question. I'm not trying to be the planning board or zoning board or anything. I'm just asking the question. Yeah, just as a feedback to your comments about affordable housing. I'm a child of the 50s, and I'm not a child of the 50s anymore, but I was born in the 50s. You know, as I said, when I stood before the select board asking to be appointed to this committee, I said that the idea that affordable housing is, in my opinion, a myth. It doesn't exist. We tried to do it, but it doesn't exist. The only people that can afford to build affordable housing is the government, and they decided to get out of that business decades ago. So anything we can do to help people, I mean, $2,300 sounds like a lot of money, but the reality of it is that's what it costs. You know, I had some property when we lived north of Boston that we managed and rented. So I just think it's important that we try to do this, but at the same time, make sure we get as much bang for the buck as we can for the town. Thanks a lot for your.
Karen,
Maybe people don't know, but the CPC made a pledge that their priority is going to be to build affordable housing. Of course, we have other projects too, and that's fine. But there's very few, as you just said, developers such as yourself that are willing to do that. And this town desperately needs that, so the state doesn't come in and penalize us, because they threaten that every year. So personally, I want to thank you for doing this, and any other developer who wanted to do this, you know, in a thoughtful way as you do. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say, you know, like, I would thank the CPC for seeing the vision and doing the support. I mean, it's worked well today.
Yeah.
Mr. Grandy,
Yes, I just want to say that, you did say that you don't think affordable housing is a myth. Well, I would disagree, because you're adding units of affordability for children that are just getting out of college, new firemen, new policemen, new nurses. These processes that are going through, they make these things affordable. If we didn't have such a program as this, they'd be paying $44,000 in rent versus $2,200 or $2,300 in rent. So let's not forget that these programs do help people out there. And I think they're important. You're adding 24. What does that increase our percentage toward the goal that the state mandates? It does increase it, and I think that's important. So the more affordable housing that we have in place may stop a future affordability
Oh,
in the
yes,
future.
very important.
So these things are very important, that you have the MBTA communities that get involved, but things in the developments are gonna get a lot more denser. So we try to put those areas within areas that were already dense in development in that program. So these type of programs are important. We're number 3 in open space in the entire town. I mean, the state, all the communities. Even if you take Miles Standish out of the equation, we're still at 48th out of 351 communities. And if I do my math correctly, with the land in the town of Plymouth, the open space being saved correctly is right now is 22.28% of all the land in the entire town. That includes Miles Standish State Forest. So we need to continue to keep at number 3 in the state, if not get to number 2 if we can, but also provide affordable housing for the people, the young people in this community, and people that need the benefit of the affordable housing trust and everything that goes along with it. So thank you. So I think that's important.
other members of the committee have any questions? John or Betty?
I do. Not a question, but a comment.
Yes,
I think one of the, you know, because we always hear that there's so much development and who can afford the housing, and one of the points that that Mr. Veo did bring up is that if we do the 80% affordable housing rate, then people with vouchers are still eligible for those. And actually, all the people with vouchers are eligible. And then the 60%, it would be only vouchers. So I think that's something that this board needs to take into consideration. And I actually think it's a good idea that we do go with the 80% for now, and then when we decide to vote and possibly another town meeting, spring town meeting, we could decide at that point if we want to buy that down. So I actually think that's a good idea for us to consider. But I'm committed to affordable housing. I got on the board being committed to affordable housing, and it's unfortunate that there's not a lot of affordable housing out there and people are suffering.
any other members of the committee? I just have a quick question to that. Roughly, how many square feet in each one of these one-bedroom apartments?
Approximately 700, it's a little over 700. Yeah, all fully sprinkled. I'm sure you
Yeah.
guys. All proper egress, full cheese, yeah, yeah.
And just to give a reference, if this was regular rate housing, single bedroom apartments, what would somebody be paying per month?
So realistically, you know, it would not hit the 23 because we back out utilities and
Yeah.
it would hit around 21-ish. Again, maxed out. That same apartment would be 28, 2,900, which again, to your point, it's not affordable. I know that.
Right.
And if I could build it for less, we would. You know, if I look at the numbers just when we started in Plymouth to now, it's absolutely insane.
And that's 28, 29, them paying the utilities.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
What is building cost now? 350
Yes, at least.
at least,
At
right?
least, yeah. And, you know, everyone thinks the land is worth $100 million. It's
So
just,
that was $350 a square foot, right, accessory.
yeah,
Yeah, and just as a point of reference, 3 years ago in Medford, an apartment of that size probably rented for almost $3,000.
yeah.
And I know that for a fact, because that's what I got.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems you have is that the affordable housing rental rate is set, it's Cambridge rate, which is insane. I mean, it's literally insane,
Yeah.
but that's
That's what
what
it
they
is.
do.
Yeah,
And, you know,
they compare us to Boston.
right, they do not make distinctions as you move down the South Shore.
We don't find that guy, how to go.
No, no.
Okay.
So I'm more than happy to come back to any other meeting, answer any other questions. I can follow up in emails if there's questions.
Sure.
You know, with Chelsea, hopefully, you know, Lynn can put a little more color to what we, you know, talked about and how theoretically, unless something's changed, this, you know, could work. And I'm more than happy to leave the door open to buy these down.
I actually already read that.
All right, more than happy to leave the door open to buy more down, if that makes sense to the board, and or would leave it open to the Affordable Housing Trust if their finances were and disposition were in line to say, yes, we want to do that.
Thanks.
So more than
That
happy.
flexibility would be good.
Yeah, and we could leave that open through CO, so it would give another 2 cycles.
Okay. Any
Thank
other questions from the committee members?
you. That was
Thank
good. Thank you.
Thank you
All right,
very
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good luck, Lynn.
We're not that bad, are we?
Oh, the fun's just beginning.
Open Space Recreation, Black Cat Road, David Gould. Good to see you again, David.
Nice to see
you. Would you like to start with Black Cat first?
Yeah.
For the record, David Gould, Director of Energy and Environment. I wanted to provide the committee with an update on Black Cat. As you recall, last fall, that was an application that was submitted to the committee. The appraised value of that property came in at 1.4 million. The committee voted to support an acquisition at that number. There was a little bit of controversy about another 80 Makepeace application during that same town meeting. So Makepeace asked if we could postpone this acquisition to another town meeting, which at the end of the day turned out to be fortuitous in that the state then, in that meantime, had put together a grant program for municipalities to acquire cranberry bog properties for acquisition, for restoration. We've submitted for that. We have a site visit with the state on July 3rd. It is a rather unique grant program in that the reimbursement rate is 90%, which we just don't see those kind of numbers anymore. So we updated the appraisal because one of the things we also wanted to do was remove, there's 2 buildings on the property. So we asked the appraiser to make remove about 2.7 acres, remove the building. So it's an improved lot, and then reappraise it because we don't want to acquire the 2 buildings.
Right.
Excuse me. So that went from 1.4 to 1.15 million.
Okay.
And then if you calculate 90% reimbursement, if we're successful in getting the grant, that comes out to 1,035,000. So if we're successful, in receiving the grant, at the end of the day, the acquisition cost would be $115,000. So
$115,000 for how many acres? 90?
approximately 90 acres. So we'll come back to the committee once we know if we got the if we received the grant, and we'll have you revote the numbers, obviously compared to what was voted on with the
Sure.
1.4 number, so you can revote it at an appropriate number. So just wanted to give the committee an update on that as we move forward. So when I do come back before all of you, you have that background.
Okay,
I have a question.
Yes, Lynn.
When will you know if the grant has been granted?
So similar to the fact that this is a 90% reimbursement grant, this grant is moving very quickly. We submitted probably 2 weeks ago, and we already have a site visit scheduled for next week. So
that's
the grant said that they would hope to award within 45 days.
wow.
So that's pretty quick.
So
That's-
if you get that in 45 days, would we want to do this at town hall meeting?
We would want to do it at fall town meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, fall town meeting. And then we could conceivably close by the end of the calendar year.
And then this puts this land in conservatorship. It can never be developed, never be touched.
Right, it would be protected, and then per the CPA statute, we would have a conservation restriction on it. The conservation restriction would allow us to do things like restore the property like we've done at Eel River and Foothills and Tidmarsh and other cranberry bog properties.
Betty?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that we're not voting on anything, but to Len's point, we can also approve this kind of article, with the basis that the grant would be approved as well. So, I mean, great deal. I mean, David had just incredible success with grants. So I don't think this is gonna be an issue, moving forward. So I just to kind of clarify, Len, that we can take a vote. I'm not saying we have to today, although I would rather be taking all the votes today, but that's my opinion. We can take a vote and have it contingent on the grant.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other committee members?
I agree with that.
Ed,
Yes, John?
yeah, just following up on what Betty said, in the past, for the, new members in the room, there's been multiple other, articles that have gone in front of town meeting, and obviously, even when the town meeting members were voting on certain, proposals that were contingent on getting, state or federal funding, that answer hadn't been, delivered yet. They knew that it was contingent on getting that vote, so we can always vote at this on a future meeting. And if David gets us bad news prior to town meeting in the fall, we can always just schedule a committee meeting and revisit our decision. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that this land, I think David mentioned, would be he'd line up another restoration, turning the cranberry bogs back to their original state. And this property, I believe, is the headwaters of Town Brook, David.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes it such an interesting grant application for the state is that this is the very headwaters of Town Brook. So what we would ultimately be able to do is restore water quality for Billington Sea, Town Brook, Plymouth Harbor, all of which are 303D listed impaired waterways of Commonwealth. So being able to take out the agricultural production on, approximately 75 acres and improve 3 impaired waterways is something that I suspect the state is really interested in.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ed. That's all I got.
Any other questions from the members?
So we can make a motion on this particular item tonight if we wanted to.
I think we'll wait and follow the recommendations and.
What was the balance if you get the grant? 150.
115,
15,000?
So the new appraised value is 1,150,000. 90% of that is 1,035,000. So the cost would be 115,000.
Tonight I'd vote.
If I did my math, but I'm sure Lynn will check.
If we're voting tonight, I'd vote this. This is a no brainer.
I would have to agree. Yeah. I just one question, David, is a new grant from you mentioned from the government. Is there anything different as far as restrictions or anything that from what we normally see?
No, I think the only real restrictions would be what would come along with use of community preservation funds. So we'll have to have a CR and a third party hold that, but that's not uncommon with what we do with all of our open space.
So it'll follow the same path as we've always said. This
Yes.
new grant isn't gonna bring anything different or new work.
No additional restrictions that I read in any of the application at
It's
all.
pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? All right, David, would you present us the full sale? Everyone's waiting for this one.
Thank you, Chelsea. So on behalf of the town manager's office and the select board, I wanted to present a proposed article and project to the committee. And that is, I know a lot of folks have talked about potentially acquiring the full sale property down on Taylor Ave for quite some time. I think I first reached out to the owner probably 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
As have other parties, and he's simply not interested in selling it. We reached back out to him last September and he expressed an interest in having an appraisal done, which was a good first step. We had that appraisal done. And since that time, we have agreed upon the appraised value and a purchase and sale is underway. Let me be clear, the purchase and sale is obviously contingent upon town meeting approval, so I don't want anybody to think anyone's doing anything out of step. But I will go through a presentation and show you essentially where we are to date. As an overview, the parcels are, or the acquisition has multiple different parcels, and I'll go through that. So there's multiple parcels that make up the property. Assessed value for everything that we would look to acquire is $525,700. The appraised value came in at $655. The request before CPC is $875, and I'll go through that with some greater detail. And I also have some additional information I can provide to the committee tonight as to what we plan to do with the nexus between the acquisition cost and the total request. The funds would be used for obviously demolishing and disposing of the existing building and then making site improvements to make it publicly accessible and usable. If you could, thank you. Again, the main goal of the project would be to increase public access to the shoreline. I think all of us know that one of the wonderful things about Plymouth is the shoreline. However, it is quite amazing how little access there actually is for the general public. So opportunities to increase public access to the shoreline are always important. And this would be something that we would be able to provide passive recreation to folks to access. So this box here shows the parcels that would be involved in the acquisition. Obviously, several of them are noted as full sale. The one that isn't is actually under the control of the same owner, so that's why we put that in green. But for all intents and purposes, they're the same owner. They might have different names, but it's the same owner. So we'd be looking to acquire all of these parcels. And if you go to the next slide, it'll show all of these little parcels that make up. So everything you see in pink plus the parcel in green. So it includes the land that we sort of commonly refer to as the full sale, which is the parcel that's on Taylor Ave that overlooks the beach, but it also includes a pedestrian path back to a gravel parking lot. So we would be looking to acquire all of those parcels.
And sorry, and 5 and 6 would stay the same use?
Yes, and I'll try to go into a little bit more. Sorry, no, not at all. A little bit more proposed uses. So we're looking at the oceanfront parcel as a way to provide passive recreation or look area. The ones that you just mentioned were the parking areas. We're looking for that to be public parking for Plymouth residents. With a beach sticker required, so the same sticker that gets you into Morton Park, Fresh Pond, would allow you to park in this parking lot. It would just be enforcement done by the current parking enforcement, so that's how that would be covered. I do want to give some thanks to Chelsea for talking to the coalition. And she verified that we could use CPC funding and keep it for Plymouth residents only. So I know that question would come up, and I appreciate Chelsea finding that out for us. And we would allow for improvement to possibly do some stormwater improvements there. Obviously neighborhood aesthetics with a building that's quite an eyesore at this point, and to make it accessible to the community. So I'll go through some photos just so everyone's clear on exactly what we're talking about. I think most folks know this is the old Full Sail. That is the actual building. You can go to the next slide. You can see the building from a different angle, so it's pretty close to that corner, right next to what we refer to as the Full Sail ramp down to the beach there. You can go to the next slide. These are meant simply to illustrate some of the things that could be done. So please don't read into this more, as these are options for what we could do. We could create off the street a ADA accessible walkway and a patio area. We could put things like shade structures in this area. We could put benches, we could put tables. It's really going to be up to the community what they want to see out here, but these are some of the things we can do. If you go to the next slide. These are, again, options with shade sails to get a nice shady area for people to sit and overlook the water. You can go to the next slide. You can include lighting, you can not include lighting. These are all the things we'll work with the community about what they want to see there. We can get as simple as just doing chairs and Adirondack chairs and keep the coastal theme there. These are coastal landscaping, which, you know, we can certainly dress up that area significantly from the way it looks right now. And improve the aesthetics of that corner. This is a view of the parking area. So this lot, we spoke with DPW and we did some general layouts of what we thought we could accommodate, and we believe we can get somewhere about 24 parking spaces. So I think when people think of potentially getting 24 parking spaces in an area as dense as Taylor Ave and Whitehorse, I think that's a fairly significant number of available parking for folks to be able to get to the water. This is just another angle so you can see that area. And the parcel does extend all the way back to where those two cars are parked. So it's fairly large, or larger than most people would think just looking at it from the street. And again, we believe you can get 24 cars and has access to Taylor Ave from the parking lot. That is that thin pedestrian strip that then goes to the sidewalk. And then you can use the crosswalk to cross over to the quote unquote Full Sail parcel on the beach. And I am here for any.
Mr. Grady, who is the enforcement group for the parking? Is that somebody separate that we have to pay, or is that?
So the town currently has a contract with parking enforcement
Yeah.
in that area.
Yeah.
So we would just add this to that.
Right, so it won't take long to fill 24 spots to get to the beach, right? Won't take long at all, but it's a benefit for the extra 24 spots.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Len?
So the assessment is for all 6 pieces of land?
The appraisal?
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
800,000? Is that the?
I'm sorry, 655,000 was the appraised value. We were looking for 875, and I know one of the questions would come up as to what that is, and I will provide folks with a draft that I can submit to the committee. And that includes, and I'll just go over this real quickly if the
Sure,
committee
yeah.
would like. That includes the demolition and disposal of the building. That is an estimate based on our own experience doing these projects. It also includes potentially an 80-foot ADA compliant gangway that we could put at the landing down to the beach so everyone could access it. And it would be ADA compliant. That includes shade sail structures, concrete pads and walkways, potentially even putting a Moby mat at the end, similar to like you see out at Whitehorse. Gravel surfacing for the parking lot and walkways to make those more accessible. And then the landscaping that I mentioned, that in my numbers that I'm getting these quotes back on totaled about 214,600. So that's that 220 nexus number. And we'll try to flesh that out in even greater detail. So that when we ask for funding above and beyond the acquisition cost, the committee, town meeting, everyone will know this is the number and that's what that represents. So I can provide this draft to you all tonight and continue to flesh out that in greater detail as I get more votes back.
Okay.
I'll give that to Chelsea. So
Sure, great.
Maintenance, who's going to take care of the landscaping and the flowers and the sales? When the wind gets too high and they rip. Who is running the maintenance? So we have to, it's purchased to complete.
So obviously a lot of care will go into the ultimate design. We're gonna putting plantings in that are going to, once they establish, are made to survive in a coastal environment with a lot of care and watering and that kind of thing. Maintenance of the shade sails, they can be up all spring and summer and into the fall, but in the winter you do take them down. Same thing with the gangway, you would want to pull the gangway up, so it's not damaged by coastal storms, and that would be,
So
that
DPW is gonna take this.
would be done by DPW.
They're there anyway.
Sometimes you hear people from DPW don't have enough people to add more, so I'm just asking the question. It's gonna-
No, to be, I think that's true of everyone,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
When, so the other night, there was a discussion about the, stormwater. No, not the stormwater, the facilities further up Taylor Ave. That, the bathrooms. Is there any, and then I guess the money that was allocated to build a bathroom was not used because they ended up going with that self-contained unit. Is there any thought of putting one of those in that area?
About putting a bathroom facility at this.
Yes.
No, we haven't thought about putting that at this location, mainly because of the advantageous ability to remove a building and open up a view shed and better access. So I think that the greater population that visits Whitehorse is where the current bathhouse is. That seems to make more sense, at least in my opinion.
Do we know if there's any hazardous material that would increase the demolition disposal cost?
We do not. The number that I was providing was sort of a higher end in case there is lead paint and if it was leachable. But that is certainly one of the things we'd want to sample to see if it's more than likely lead paint. The question is it leachable lead or is it not? That's really going to drive the disposal cost. That being said, I think the size of that building is small enough that we could do it properly with that number.
And when are they projecting we would close on this? I know we need a town meeting vote, but is there something in the grant negotiation?
So oftentimes, if we're able to have a successful town meeting, we'll talk with the seller. Oftentimes, it's advantageous for them to close by the end of the calendar year. I will say that last fall, we had 2 acquisitions. And at fall town meeting, we were able to close on both of those by the end of the calendar year. So we have experience making sure we can get those done in a timely way. But oftentimes it's an advantage for them financially to close within a calendar year. If we need to do that, we can.
Well, we have almost 10 weeks if we do it in town meeting.
Sure. Yeah. And last year we did 2, so I think we could do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other committee members have any questions? No? Just one, David, and it may be more for DPW, but recently there was some issues down here with some stormwater runoff. And you mentioned here, this would be a time that they could do some improvements to that. Would that help that situation? I didn't get to see exactly
Yeah, I
what
think
it was.
we certainly couldn't use CPA funds to do any stormwater improvement work. That wouldn't be consistent with the statute, but we might have the opportunity to do some work to improve the treatment on this property before it discharges. So I want to leave that option open. But I do think it's an option that obviously we currently don't have. So it's something that might be helpful in the future.
Yes, at least we don't own the property at that point.
Correct.
Some other questions?
I wasn't sure if Beverly was gonna say something.
Betty, do you have a question?
Just that, I think that we've been trying to figure or to get some kind of action with the full sale for decades.
Yes.
It hasn't been just 15 years. So I mean, I think it's great that it'll be sticker parking, resident parking. Whitehorse Beach is a beautiful beach. as being part of the previous parking committee that implemented all the changes down here for parking, you know, it wasn't our charge to go and find parking, but this is helpful for, you know, the residents that still want to come to White Horse Beach.
Any other committee members? David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Good luck on the third.
Thank you.
And now the Bud Light presentation. Dolly Snow Bix now and
We're not
Scott
doing-
Day, is it,
We're not doing much.
I can go first.
you got it? Okay.
I go first.
Oh, yes.
That's one for you and one for you. We already have our applications. I'm not gonna sign this over here. Get rid of that set. How do you do that? There we go. Well, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair,
Thank you.
and members of the committee for listening to us tonight. I am Dolly Snow Bicknell, and I am the president of Project Gurnet and Bug Lights. Tonight, I'm very pleased to be speaking to the Plymouth Community Preservation Committee about our 2024-25 application, which is called Duxbury Pier Light, also known as Bug Light Restoration Project. As you are well aware, Duxbury Pier Light is a much-loved landmark at the mouth of Plymouth Harbor. The lighthouse's iconic image is seen throughout your town on logos and publications. But are any of you wondering why I'm here talking to you about a lighthouse called Duxbury Pier Light when it's located in Plymouth and there's no pier near it? Well, here's at least part of the answer. In 1849, Justin Windsor wrote in the history of the town of Duxbury, Massachusetts, and I wrote, and I quote, "On a flat and dangerous shoal which makes off from Saquish Point, there was built by the United States in 1813 a stone pier. It is placed on a mussel bed and is about 12 feet square at the bottom and 18 feet high, and at high tide is 6 feet above the water," end quote. And here is a picture of that pier. That's okay. Right next to Bug Light, before its catwalk and roof were added. Okay? You want to hold it, Vanna? Yeah.
What do you call them,
Vanna White. Oh, good.
Good replacement, right?
Yeah, that's good. You don't have to hold it all the time. Okay, the history of Bug Light is in our application and in our brochure, but here are a few important facts. Duxbury Pier Light was first lit on September 15, 1871. It was the very first first cast iron caisson style lighthouse in the United States. Between 1886 and 1890, over 275 tons of stones were added around the base to protect the structure. And that helped it when it was ice, when ice came in there too. In 1897, a catwalk and roof were built to make life a little easier for the lighthouse keepers who lived there. In 1900, a 700-gallon water cistern was added. In 1902, a 1,000-pound fog bell with a striking apparatus was installed. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh, lost in the fog off the New England coast, spotted Bug Light and righted the course of his famous transatlantic flight to France. Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
In 1964, the lighthouse was automated, ending 93 years of lighthouse keepers living at the light, and for most of those years, rowing to Plymouth for provisions. Also in 1964, the Coast Guard replaced the fifth order Fresnel lens with a red plastic optic. In 2014, Bug Light was listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. Now, here's a little more history of our group, Project Gurnet and Bug Lights. Because if it weren't for a group of people who felt that this lighthouse was worth saving, it would not be here today. And this is the Cliff Notes version. Back in 1983, Plymouth Harbor Master Ralph Savory and Duxbury Harbor Master Don Beers were approached by the Coast Guard. They wanted to know if the top of Duxbury Pier Light would fit on the Snug Harbor parking lot at the end of the Matakeesit Port in Duxbury. Since being automated in 1964, Bug Light has deteriorated greatly. It was rusty, it had broken glass, and was frequently being vandalized. Actually, there's some pictures of that over here, but you don't have to move. You can look later. The harbor masters were told that the Coast Guard was planning to replace the top of the lighthouse with a light on top of a lower maintenance fiberglass pole. Well, this news that Bug Light was being torn down was not well received by concerned local residents. With a rallying cry of "Save Bug Light," they formed a preservation group called Project Bug Light. This group met with the Coast Guard, and they offered to raise the funds necessary to repair and paint the upper part of the lighthouse if the Coast Guard would continue to maintain the lower part. Rear Admiral Richard Bauman was quoted as saying, "It's a great compromise. We're tickled to have the local people pitch in and help us. It's the only way these lights are going to be saved." Well, to make a long story short, the lighthouse was saved, and the Coast Guard gave Project Bug Light a 5-year license to take care of Duxbury Pier Light. Because the lighthouse was still an active aid to navigation, the Coast Guard still maintains the lantern, the foghorn, and the solar panels as it does today. Our group has approximately 40 active members, most of whom are from Plymouth, Kingston, and Duxbury. Our name changed from Project Bug Light to Project Gurnet and Bug Lights in 1999, when we assumed responsibility for Plymouth Light, more commonly known as Gurnet Light. Of course, we continue to take care of Bug Light too. One huge project was performed from 2009 to 2010, when we spent over $200,000 on the structural restoration and painting of Bug Light. In 2018, the Secretary of the Interior and the Government Services Administration awarded ownership of the lighthouse to Project Gurnet and Bug Lights through the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act. So we actually own it now. You need to know that thanks to our generous donors and other fundraising, we have always been able to take care of Bug Light alone without asking for help until now. As you have seen from our application, this restoration project is of such magnitude that we can no longer pay for it all by ourselves. Years ago, at one of our board meetings, we got into a discussion about how we would feel if for some reason our license for Bug Light was not renewed. We all decided that it would be okay. We would be proud of what we had accomplished because, as someone there said, this is who we are and this is what we do. And just what is our mission statement? The purpose of Project Gurnet and Bug Lights, Inc. shall be to operate a nonprofit organization which shall be actively engaged in the restoration, preservation, and maintenance of Duxbury Pier Light, that's Bug Light, and the Plymouth Light Station, Gurnet Light, Fort Andrew, and Keeper's Cottage, and to encourage public awareness and support of these unique historic monuments to our nautical past. And now, I would like to introduce Scott Day.
Anna.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Vice President of Facility.
Changed quite a bit there, huh? Yeah.
Vice President of Facilities for Project Gurnet and Bug Lights, who is fortunate enough to live in Plymouth, right next to Gurnet Light. Recently, when we were speaking with the National Park Service on a Zoom call, I mentioned where Scott lived, and one of the National Park Service people chimed in, "That's one heck of a lawn ornament." Here's Scott to speak about the restoration project itself. Would you like to sit?
No, I'm good right here.
I'm gonna be your banner, or are you good?
I'm good. So this is, our project consists of, restoring Bug Light.
you know, it's been there for 170 years now, a whole bunch, before my time. And it's a cast iron, hunk of steel sitting out there. The plates, how they built this, there's a case on it, for the folks that don't know, it was actually, the bottom part was built, they put a floor in it, and they floated it out there. And they sunk it in place, so that was the first time they had ever done that, was when they did that here. And what's happened is, you know, wear and tear, being in the ocean, that we've all seen it out there, and it has lasted this long. But the bottom plates are 2 inches thick, and they have a flange on the inside. And wear and tear, the movement, waves hitting it all the time. And back in the, Dolly mentioned that they had put, I believe you mentioned that they had put a whole bunch of stones out there around the lighthouse to stop the ice flows when they come out of the bay. It would hit up against it, and some of that, those ice flows may have cracked some of the plates. And as you can see on this picture here, all these vertical rust marks are where the cracks are in the plates. And this is, there's still 2 more courses of plates below the waterline. So we've got issues up and down, and it's mostly on the west side of the lighthouse. So what we've done, when we took ownership of it in 2018, and we started to search for an engineering firm, structural engineering firm, to that had experience in projects just like this. It took us a while, but by 2020, we signed an agreement with Structures North, which is a structural engineering firm, to help come up with a fix for our issue. And so we had a contract, signed a contract with him, and he, late in 2021, he had come up with the drawings, all these drawings here, that show all the different issues and where the mending plates have to be. So what we've got to do is we've got to go out there and hang down the side of it and drill holes into it to put like a mending plate over the seams of the cracks. The bottom part of the lighthouse is filled with concrete mostly. And what they'll do is they'll drill into the steel and then into the concrete, and they'll put anchors in there with a epoxy anchor to hold it. We know there's a few void spaces in there, and what they'll use is a soft material, fill the soft material up with the epoxy and put the anchor in on that. So once we got the drawings done, the next step was to find contractors that are capable of doing a project like this. And as we all know, COVID hit, and a lot of construction companies shut down for 8 months, a year. They got so backlogged with work that when they did go back to work, they didn't even want to look at this because they had so much work. And we're still having some issues with that. But we have found some contractors that are capable and were at least willing to come out, visit it, and give us some estimates on what it will cost. Now, that was a little bit of an eye shopper too, on the cost. And so as we progressed through the process, we got the estimates right around Christmas time, and I think our last one was in March. And they're in between the 1.3 and the 1.7 million range for their estimates. So that's where we are. A couple other things that need to be done while we're there are the roof structure. All right, goes around the catwalk. Now, I don't know, that was replaced back in 1985 by Dave Sylvia. Everybody, I think, knows Dave Sylvia. He owns the Easterly that's tied up in the harbor. And he was a part of our organization back then, and he and his son built it. But it has deteriorated. It's been out there for almost 40 years, or 40 plus years. And it's time to rebuild it. So that's the second phase of our project. The first phase is to secure the plates in the bottom. The second phase is to replace the roof over the catwalk. The third phase is the inside. So I mentioned earlier, the bottom part's concrete. And then the next floor this is a brick and concrete. It's ballast basically to hold the lighthouse in place. And then up above it is, I believe, two rows of bricks all the way to the top. And we're having some cracks in the bricks. Some of them need to be removed, they need to be repointed and replaced, put back in so that it holds its integrity. So that's the third part of it, and the fourth part of it is, well, here's some more pictures of the cracks, the engineering drawings. And we've also got an issue up in the lantern room where there's a doorway that takes you from the inside of the lantern room to the outer deck. And there's some deterioration on the plates there also.
You do have pictures
That need
in
to
the
be
application showing that,
Yes.
unfortunately.
So there's some more pictures of the roof structure and the catwalk, the wood. Dave also replaced all the wood then. But it's, again, 40-year-old pressure treated, it needs to be replaced again. Although 2 years ago, a lot of it was knocked out by a big wave. And we think that some of those wave actions that we've been seeing is what's creating some of the cracks and some of the stress on the shell itself. On the lower section here, right here, not this past winter, but a year ago, we've seen one of the plates start to move. It's moved out about 2 inches. And we may have to do some emergency temporary cabling or something to hold it in place until the work's completed. So that's where we're at, and this is the roof structure, the design to replace the roof structure. So we've got, as an organization, we've got experience doing projects like this. We've taken on, back in, as Dolly said, in 2009 and 2010, we had to redo all the hand railings on the lighthouse, all the doors, the roof support structures, for the roof around the catwalk. And we also had it repainted at the time. So, and then some of the other projects we've done, we've rebuilt granite light.
Yeah.
We had it reshingled, we had the old windows that were no longer any good, we had new ones made. We had the whole inside and outside of the lantern room, had all the lead paint taken off and had it repainted. So we've got quite a bit of experience with these. Plus, we're gonna have our engineer have oversight on the project too, so that we make sure that it's being carried out as designed.
And section 106 reviews, you did those for?
Yes, we've done a number of section 106 reviews for the Mass Historic Commission to make sure everything's done within the Secretary of Interior standards for historic properties. And we're in the process of filing one for this project right now.
Our architect?
Yeah, one of the things that we had to do because of our ownership of the lighthouse is we have to have a historical preservationist on board, and we have William Finch from Finch and Rose, and he's been been on board with this project. He signed off on the project as meeting the historical preservation standards. He was actually on a project here in town, was the Spire Center. He was one of the historical preservationists there. So, I think we've got a handle on the project. We don't have a final, contractor in mind yet. We've had two proposals, and we've got another contractor going out, I think the week after next, to scope out the project.
Okay. Committee members have any questions? Karen?
Is this included?
That is the erosion of Gurnett.
That's Gurnett.
That's
That's not this, no.
No, yeah, two different things.
Yeah,
Did you go to, the Duxbury CPC?
No, because these are,
this is in Plymouth.
they're both in.
Hmm.
So Duxbury, although its name is Duxbury Pier Light, it was only because of the channel going into Duxbury. And that the government back in 1809 called the pier that they had built as a channel marker,
We call it Duxbury Pier Light.
to call it Duxbury Pier. And then they just carry, I don't know why.
Confusion. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how much of the lighthouse is below the surface of the water?
Below the surface, I believe it's, about 12 feet approximately.
And it's sitting on some kind of, there's an outcrop there next to it, so it's sitting on the base of that outcrop.
There is, we have a drawing, a picture here.
That's fine, the 12 feet, I believe.
Spent a lot of.
There is, at an extreme low tide, you can walk all the way around the lighthouse. Around,
Oh, actually,
Yeah,
there.
this one here,
have you surveyed the concrete? In its condition, you talked about there may be some cracks in it or stuff. I mean, concrete sitting in salt water doesn't last forever.
the concrete seems good, it's the
I understand that, but you're starting to deal with fixing the above, the above surface, and, hopefully you've done a good survey of the below surface to make sure you're not attaching something that will then fail completely. Does the Coast Guard provide you any funds for using it as a navigational aid?
No,
They only maintain and repair the equipment and for the light and the fog signal.
and the
So-
solar panels.
Right, so you're saying that this project is 1.5 million, and you're asking the CPC to fund it 100%?
We are working on other funds. We have applied for other grants. The ball on the top of the light is a vent for the structure itself. And, we believe it may have been hit by lightning, but there's also a lot of corrosion on it. We applied for a grant for that, and we received a $3,000 grant for that. We applied to the Mass Historic Commission, and last week we were awarded $50,000 for this project. And, I mean, we're not stopping there. We've got a bunch of other,
So basically we spend this $1.5 million, the light sits out there, but nobody can go visit it, correct? They can't go on it.
you can drive around it.
You don't want to, you don't
It's
want.
one of the fascinating things of Lighthouse, you know?
I understand, I grew up in
It's
Virginia,
our beacon.
I was around a lot of lighthouses, lighthouses were probably built at the same time or even before that one was built, it's just a question.
So the Coast Guard has to pass a rappelling course for them to go out there. So we promised that that we would not bring people out. It's not,
Plus the currents there are, when the current's really going, it's about 15 knots.
Yeah.
This, every mariner that comes into Plymouth Harbor passes this, it's the first impression of Plymouth. It's all over our websites in town, it's, in my mind, it's more important than the Plymouth Rock, by the way. Maybe I'm a little partial.
I think you're a little pumped. So as I said to Mr. Vale, so in business, they talk about something called your elevator speech. If you've ever heard of that, you know, when you're trying to propose something, what you can say to somebody while you're having them in the elevator for 45 seconds. And so my question is, what's the value, again, as I asked Mr. Veo, and I ask everybody who come before this committee, what's the value proposition to the town of Plymouth to spend $1.5 million of, you know, it's not like this is an account that has hundreds of millions of dollars in it. You know, what's your elevator speech to say, what's the value proposition for the town of Plymouth to support this project?
Well, the value proposition is maintaining one of its oldest, historical monuments in the town. It's been around since 1871. It's, you know, it's an aid navigation still. It does provide some, support. The foghorn still works, the light still goes on every day. It's
history.
Isn't it who
That's
Plymouth
right.
is?
I understand, I'm not, that's right.
It's who Plymouth is. I mean, this is us.
John,
I think, Betty, do you have a question?
Let John go first.
Oh, John?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so who do we got there? Dolly and Scott?
Yeah.
You got it.
Dolly and Scott. So who owns the Gurnet light right now in the 8 acres that it sits on?
The United States government.
And when is that determination going to be made? You guys applied for, you guys put in an application or a request to get it, right?
The National
We did.
Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act, we filed that. That was first due in December. We filed it. They've come back and wanted us to do more things, which they always do, which they did with us for Bug Light. And our deadline was supposed to be when we were supposed to talk to you before. So they bumped it back and we just finished our application again a week ago Monday. So we have no idea how long they're gonna take this time.
Were you the only applicant?
We don't know. They won't tell us.
Okay,
Every
so
time we try and
That's
ask.
for the Gurnet, not this.
Right.
Right, this,
So we're
We
talking
are-
about a fully separate.
We owe.
one organization, two separate properties.
when this
Discussing
was
this
first
light-
proposed to CPC, right, John, am I wrong? When this was first proposed to CPC, it was about the Gurnet, right?
Correct.
No, two separate.
Wait, no.
That's not my question.
Yeah, wait for him to answer.
John?
yeah,
did you
Yes,
hear
you're
my-
right, Karen.
Right, so when we first heard about this, it had nothing to do with Bug Light.
Right,
It had to do with this.
and it had to do with you filing an application to own all the Granite lights,
correct.
but you evidently did not.
No.
But
Right, so-
we will that.
So back to my line of questioning, Dolly. Who is the current bug? Do you guys pay taxes on Bug Light? And is it listed at the Registry of Deeds?
It's listed in the Registry of Deeds. We do not pay taxes because we're a nonprofit and we file every year not to file taxes.
So who
I
would
know
hold
where
the
this is.
who would hold the historical designation if such a application would it be moved forward by the committee and approved by town meeting?
Well, it's on the National Historic Registry,
Of historic places. What was the
and
question?
that stays there and forever.
John, this is Len, if I may say, I believe in the CPC statute, there are some provisions about when you spend this kind of money, they have to basically, I'm just gonna use a very non-technical, non-legal term. They have to make you essentially you become part of the ownership of that in the covenants of what can and can't be done with that piece of property.
The town.
The town, yes. That's my understanding. I'm not an expert on it. But
So,
that's my understanding.
Dolly, if we make the assumption that you're gonna win this bid on the Gurnet light, what is the current state of that lighthouse? And is that something you're gonna have to go out and put $1 to $2 million into?
What's the current what? I didn't hear
State.
the first part of that.
How much is
The
it gonna
current
cost?
physical state of the Gurnett Lighthouse out on the point. And are
it's
you gonna
great.
need $1 to $2 million for that if you win that bid?
Oh, no,
No,
absolutely not. We've been taking care of both lighthouses, Bug Light for 40 years and Granite Light now for 25 years. And, Bug Light, because of its location, needs a lot more work. And it's gotten to the point where we have to do something. Granite Light is a wood structure, which is very easy to maintain. We've been maintaining it, and currently it's got one cracked window. That's it.
we repaint it every 3 years. We have it painted.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
So my
are we
last
discussing?
point is that, or last comment is, building off of Len's question earlier when he said, what is the intrinsic value to the, what is the ROI, the return on investment for the committee or the town to pony up this 1.5 million? And obviously because nobody from the town of Plymouth can get there. You can certainly go around it in your boat, but I don't think that's what we're getting at. And, something in my mind that would be, should be a possibility is that if you guys get the Gurnett Light, there should be certainly some significant incremental access to your 8-acre parcel of land out there in the land-based lighthouse, so that the taxpayers of Plymouth can get out there and see something of that nature.
We do have open houses for people to come out and visit Granite Light. When we become owners, the access will be easier for people to come out. We have a bunch of restrictions now because of piping clovers. But when we do take ownership, the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act program has a specific formula to it. And you have to apply for that. I mean, you can't apply for it. We couldn't turn it into a movie theater. It just can't happen. And we've applied for it to be, to maintain aids to navigation. We applied to continue to maintain the property in the lighthouses. And we have committed to giving tours of the location. I mean, you gotta understand, it's all private property they'd be driving through, so there's a huge balancing act between having people come out and not upsetting all the property owners that you're driving across their land.
And the National Park Service suggested that we were trying to think about a museum or something. And they suggested that we have 3D, kiosks and a video tour of the lights so that for people who can't go out there. And we're hoping to do that for Bug Light also.
Ms. Brandon, if I may, I think it's important that this thing does get preserved, but I think it should be part of a 3-town or 2-town situation there where it's called Duxbury Light. So have you applied, not just to the CPC, but have you talked to any of the selectmen in Duxbury, any groups? Any groups? To make this more feasible for me personally, because the residents can't get out to this as far as the benefit is concerned. I understand the benefit is to save a historic structure. But in the CPC's job, us, I think, is to ensure that the residents have some type of access or something that goes along with this, which piggybacks on what Mr. Mahoney was just talking about. On my end of the equation. We're not here to discuss the Gurnett this evening. We're here because you have a presentation strictly on this light.
For Bug Light.
So we go off on the Gurnett, where to me it's just
Confusing.
Yes. Let's stay on the
And we
light
don't know
itself.
what we'll get Gurnett.
But if you want to bring into the equation the Gurnett and access for the public to help so that Plymouth residents will have access to the other light, then something may be able to work out. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend the rest of the night talking about the Gurnett when we're here on a presentation strictly for the light.
Exactly.
If we want to discuss the Gurnett, then we should put it on the agenda to discuss the Gurnett.
I
And
agree,
we don't own the burn, yeah.
And you don't own it.
right, we don't. We haven't reached out to the other towns, as you guys know, Laura, probably much better than I do, but any local funding has sort of fallen into the Community Preservation Act programs.
So what did lighthouses do before there was a community preservation committee and act?
Well,
They had to come up with funding to get,
The United
the work.
States government.
correct. So
right,
that's
we
what-
had
can't
to
do
discover.
So it's time to reach out to your representatives, whether it be state, federal. Hey, Plymouth may be willing to help you out with the bug light called Duxbury light.
Bug, not Bud.
But not Bud.
I know you keep saying Bud Light.
No.
No.
That's my Boston accent. Fuck that guy, yeah. So I think a community effort between both towns, the federal government, state representatives, to come up with a grant and help to do the work on this.
And we went to the Mass Historic Commission,
I
and
gave you my-
they've given us some money, we have some money that, you know, the estimate for managing the project as it's going is $50,000. And we plan on picking up that part, we've already put out $40,000 on engineering. And we have approximately $150,000 more that we're planning on dedicating to this project, so we've got. I mean, it's not like it's 1.5. We asked for 1.5 because that's where our estimates. When you go for an estimate, you know, we all know that.
We know we're not voting on this evening, so if you came back at a later date with somebody that said they're willing to help in the 1.5 process, that would help in any decision that was being made. So we can go round and round, I can give you my opinion. My opinion is we need a little bit of help. That's up to the chairman.
That's up to.
Not up to me, it's up to the chairman.
Mr. Mahoney?
No, Mr. Mahoney.
You're all good, okay, any other?
I'm good, I made my little spiel, and thank you, sir.
Oh, Betty,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
So honestly, it's more than asking money from just Duxbury. If it's actually considered a navigational tool that we're saying that all the boaters use, and I'm a boater, and when I see bug light coming from wherever I am, I'm home. So, I think it's much further reach for all the communities, surrounding communities, even Bourne, Buzzards Bay, they all come through here. They're all coming, Duxbury, Kingston, Marshfield. I mean, this is way more than let's go to Plymouth and get, $1.5 million for bug light, when I think there's an opportunity, as Mr. Grandy said, to go to all these other communities before you come back to Plymouth and say, we need $1.5 million. And earlier, to Karen's point, when this came before us before, it was for the Gurnet. And like I said, I'm a boater. I've seen the Gurnet. I've seen the erosion of the Gurnet. So that's like a whole different, put it this way, if we're gonna put any money into bug light, I do not want a penny of that money spent on anything with the Gurnet, because we can all sit here and say, oh, we're gonna try and do this and we're gonna try and do that. Everybody sitting in this room knows that crossing private property in Duxbury is not gonna get anybody any access from Plymouth or anywhere else, quite frankly. So, I think you guys need to do a lot more work before you come and ask for the $1.5 million. And I think it's really all the South Shore communities. And the Cape. I mean, they come over from Chatham, go big or go home, right?
any other committee members?
Yeah, I mean, what I would suggest is don't limit yourself. It doesn't hurt to go have a conversation. You know, if they say if you don't ask a question, you don't get, all you get, if you don't ask a question, all you know is no. So as Betty said, go have the conversations and see what people would say. This is a big ask. And it's a big ask two ways, not because it's 1.5 million, but there's Mr. Veo, use his example, I know that's a for-profit business. You know, he's got some skin in the game. So even though you're nonprofit, you know, what's your skin in the game to do this? And that will, as Mr. Gaines said, that'll temper it some for people to even to consider. I personally would just give you my feedback right now. At this point, we could approve it and push it along to town meeting, and my guess is it would never get approved at town meeting.
It wouldn't.
So, you know, I understand it's a hard sale. This is a tough thing. And I understand the significance of it, like anything else we have in this world. We want to try to preserve this stuff, but, there's a limit to, you know, like I said, we don't have hundreds of millions of dollars in this fund, and we have to be
It's a
very
bad
selective.
time and space, with everything going on, even CPC funds are way down below what they're supposed to be. So we have to, you know, but I think Tim's idea is stellar. That there are many, and Betty, there are many more communities that I think should be involved. Get them involved, excited about it. Have one meeting place. And could be Memorial Hall and just bring them in.
No, if money was no object, then obviously it'd be a no-brainer, but it comes down to the residents of the town of Plymouth and utilizing the funds that they're contributing to their
Absolutely.
benefit,
Yeah,
the residents of the town. So we have to look at it in all different directions.
yeah, I could
And I
say
appreciate
that.
what you do, what you bring it to me. I appreciate it. If I had the money, I'd pay for it, but I don't.
I could say to the residents of Plymouth, but it's history, it's who we are. It's just at a time and space where people just wouldn't understand it, they don't have the money. So,
Takes a lot of work to bring all the communities together and all
Yeah.
the representatives and the senators. Believe me, I know, been there, done it.
yeah,
It's a lot of work, but sometimes it's worth it. David Gould does it, getting grants all the time, and he works very hard at it, so.
Any other committee members have any comments or questions?
no.
Okay. Thank you very much.
She had.
Josh, you can wait until the public comment at the end, yes. Now we're gonna move to Chelsea and Finance Department memos.
Good evening, everyone. Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance for everybody, so everyone knows. So we're presenting to you tonight, sort of, some year-end kind of cleanup that we'd like to do. We're presenting a few memos and then a report, of some projects that are complete, and balances that are left that need to be closed out. So we'd be requesting a vote of the committee to close those out. The first one on the report is actually this building that we're in right now, the 1820 Courthouse Building. As you remember, town meeting authorized $5 million of CPC funds for this building. In the memo, we've identified an article where, as you know, we never ended up borrowing for the $5 million. We'd keep going back to town meeting and we would use available funds to pay down that authorization. At one town meeting, we used $250,000 of the 1820 Courthouse Meals Tax Fund to put some money towards this project of that 5 million. So what remains in the account is $175,103.85. So that basically represents a portion of that meals tax money that we're going to move back into the meals tax fund.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily belong to CPC. So that would be,
I'll move approval on the finance director's recommendation that we get that back into the meals tax fund.
May I have a second?
Second,
Thank you.
Yep, second.
Okay, Len,
Yes.
Karen,
yes.
Betty,
Yes,
John,
Yes,
Mr. Grandy,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The next memo is just sort of in general. So what we're proposing to do is basically on an annual basis. Any projects that have been completed, either a department head that's overseeing a project, like one of David Gould's projects, or another project that is like a private project that we haven't spent all the money and then the project's complete, that we would ask you on an annual basis to sort of close out those accounts.
Yeah.
And you could take a vote to authorize the chair to sort of sign the form that we're asking regarding closing out those accounts.
Good.
Financial official.
Yes.
So you're talking, and so in other words, if we had voted to spend X number of dollars and we had $5 left over, that $5 goes back in the CPA fund, right?
That's correct,
Right.
yes. So, and it also goes back to, we have to go back to the original article language.
Right.
And if the project was taken out of like the housing reserve, and if that money was left, and that money specifically would go back to the housing reserve. If it was taken out of just estimated annual revenues or the undesignated fund balance, it would go back to CPC balance.
Undesignated balance.
Yeah, just in general, to be used for all purposes.
Mhm.
So that's part of, like, Chelsea has all the article language that she provided here for each of these articles, so that determines where the money will go back to.
You need a motion on these two?
There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So one more question, just
Yeah.
it's more of a procedural question. So does that transfer then have to be go back and be presented to the A&F?
No, this is just
Because
within.
it's CPA money.
Yeah, it's
not-
just within finance.
Okay.
If it just in general, if any project is complete and like if we were building the fire station, you know, and there was money left, that might be a bad example. Like if you bought.
I have a lot of money left
Yeah,
over first.
I know.
Let's not go there.
If you bought a piece of equipment
No, I understand,
and,
I
you know,
understand.
there was money left, it just gets closed out at the end of the year. We don't have to go back to town meeting or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm.
As a department head for 14 and a half years, Lynn was always honest and
Yeah.
returned all the money quickly.
I mean, I think this is an operational thing that we voted kind of at a high level, so we don't have to sit here and deal with each one individually. It gives you the permission to go do it. There's a formality that you have, some documentation that has to be created and signed. And it just, in the end, it makes it simpler for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we would just give you one report on an annual basis
One
of those
report, you
ones.
would say which
Yep.
ones that were taken care of.
Yeah, and we've got other accounts that we've asked about, but they've been asked to be held by like the department who's working on those projects, because there might be something going on there that just hasn't been completed yet, so let's just wait and see, you know?
I have a question.
Yes,
I hope I'm not out of line here, but whatever happened to that harbor money, that building that fell through on the waterfront? What was it? The harbor? What was it called?
Was it
Yeah,
a
that white-
CPA
Yes,
project?
CPA, and it fell through, they didn't do it.
Oh, so last, at the spring town meeting.
Yeah,
You guys recommended to town meeting to take that money, it was 740 something thousand. And we used it to pay down the Pilgrim Hall Museum project. The debt on that
that's
project.
right. Okay.
Okay, so it was
It's
historic
already been
money.
taken care of.
Yeah, it was historic money and we just put it to another historic
I'm not
project.
a town meeting member yet, so I should.
Chairman,
yes.
what do we need to move here as far as?
Well, I think the recommendation from, if I'm correct, one, let me know. She'd like a motion and help to vote on. For the purpose of closing accounts with unencumbered balances, the finance committee recommends the following procedure. That signing authorization for the chair and the vice chair And that upon a majority vote to close an account, the committee authorizes the chair or vice chair, in the absence of the chair, to sign on behalf of that committee. How do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, so you would take one vote to authorize the chair or the vice chair to sign, the form to close them out. And then just a second vote, and that would be like for now and into the future. You know what I mean? Now into the future, but you could take a vote on closing all 5 of them at one time, like that's a separate vote. One vote is to authorize the chair or
To
vice
sign.
chair to sign.
Can I make that motion now so we can get that one?
I think, Chelsea
I
wanted
just
to,
wanted to expand on that. At the time of writing the memos, the vice chair and the clerk were one and the same. Now that we have a separate person for the clerk, we want to consider expanding that to also cover Len. So in the event that the chair is out, the vice chair would sign. If they're both out, the clerk can sign.
So you wanna move it to 3 versus the 2?
The clerk's also able to run.
So
the-
moved. So moved.
Second.
Please.
move in second, okay? And we will, any questions on that or,
Thank you, Tim.
no? Len,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes,
Betty,
Yes,
John,
Yes,
Tim,
Yes.
and myself, yes, unanimous.
okay.
Okay, and then the
that'll make things
second
easy.
motion would be to close the 5 articles listed underneath the 1820 courthouse. Those 5, we've done the research,
So we're good.
Yep.
To close that out, those 5. Motion made.
Motion made by Mr. Grandy, second
Second.
by
Second.
Karen. Any discussion or questions? Len,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes,
Betty,
yes,
John,
yes,
Tim,
Yes.
and myself, yes, unanimous again.
So the last memo that we're asking is, if you remember, we used to have like a signing sheet for every single invoice, and you guys would each sign, those sheets, and we would attach
pass them
them. Yeah.
around, yeah.
So what we're asking is, in the future, when we have administrative expenses that come out of your administrative fund, that you take a vote to authorize, Chelsea would present to the committee like a list of those expenses. And then, but this vote that you're gonna take tonight would just authorize the chair, the vice chair, or the clerk to sign those.
After the vote is taken.
After the vote is taken, so
Move
we're
it.
not gonna move,
I so
So
moved.
moved.
okay.
In second. Any questions or comments? Len,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes,
Betty,
yes,
John,
yes,
Tim,
Yes.
and myself, yes, again, unanimous.
Okay, just one thing before I go tonight, I wanted to I mentioned a little bit earlier that we recommended that you review the applications, ask your questions, get your information. Chelsea has forwarded all the applications to town council to make sure that they're eligible, that they're, meeting all the requirements that are needed, for you to even make a recommendation to approve them. So we're still waiting to hear back from council on those.
Okay.
and you want us to vote on those July 25th?
Yeah, I'm thinking at a later
Yeah.
meeting.
Later meeting after you verify and get
Yeah,
the cost.
so we're
added
gonna-
The accounts.
Yeah, so we're gonna close the books
Mhm.
after June 30th. We
Yeah.
keep them open for 2 weeks because we have encumbrances and other things that happen. I'm usually able to close to get all the information that we need on CPC probably by mid-July. So we'll know exactly what we have for available balances, because we will have some available cash balances that we can use for projects. And then,
When does the warrant close? I know. I have that
August
at home.
9th.
August 9th?
Yeah. And what I'll provide to you, couple of things. One is, in any of these projects, and David mentioned it on one of his projects tonight specifically. sometimes these projects in the past have gone to town meeting, we've recommended something, an amount. But then there might be a building on it that needs to be demolished. There might be, you know, a gate or a fence or something that needs to be put up. A sign that needs to be put up. Different costs associated with some of these projects that we want you guys to recommend as part of the project and not to be paid out of the administrative fund, some of these other ancillary costs that happen. In the past, the fund has been used sometimes for that. And it may be that, and including closing costs with attorneys. We've found out from Chelsea attending the boot camp class.
Yes.
That you're not even supposed to pay those legal costs out of your admin fund. You're supposed to pay them with the project costs. So those are things that we'll sort of tack on, we'll add on, you know, when you go to vote these
Yeah.
things.
Question?
Yeah.
John, maybe you can ask, now the warrant closed at August 9th, but we have to have everything in before that.
Yeah, so what will happen
2 weeks
is,
before that.
the deadline is August 9th.
Okay,
So when you vote the 25th, okay, we will put together the warrant language. The applications, we already have, you know, I mean,
Right.
applications, as long as they're complete. So basically, we would have everything that you need to submit at that point,
okay, good.
okay? But we will come back. I mean, I guess just in general with regards to borrowing, we do have obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects outstanding right now. That have been voted in the past, approximately $13 million for these projects. So at the same time, investigating with the various applicants and department heads who are overseeing these projects, the timing of when, you know, they're gonna need to draw on any of this money. So that all plays into sort of the budget picture, you know, going out into the future as to, you know, what we're gonna do. But if we were to borrow for all of that today, the principal and interest cost on an annual basis starting out would be,
Can we do this under the financial report when it comes?
oh, yeah, no, I'm just in general, I just wanted to, because Betty had asked me for some financials, so I just wanted to make sure that I at least let you know. But that, it equates to about $1.3 million. And the amount of each year for the principal and interest, each year for that, for everything that's outstanding right now, for that 13 million, okay?
Now, it'd be over 10 years.
It's over 20 years. So it's obviously, there's a lot of interest that gets added to it, and that's why we try to pay it down and not borrow, you know? So you basically raise on an annual basis about $4 million. So there is, you know, there's flexibility, there's room, you know, to do either borrowing or to use available cash.
Or not borrow.
Yeah, or not, yeah. So I mean, that's the decision, you know, obviously for the committee.
Thank you.
Okay,
Lynn,
but I will
Lynn,
bring
quick-
back more, yeah.
One quick question for Lynn.
Yes,
Lynn, is the, for a vote on potential fall town meeting articles, is July 11th too soon? Or you're entirely comfortable with the 25th of July?
I'm comfortable with the 25th of July, and that gives us opportunity to close the books and let me get you some actual numbers that, you know,
Okay,
you can live with, you know?
okay, all
'Cause
right,
we'll
no
know
problem,
what
thank you.
undesignated fund balances, what the reserves have left in
Because we
there.
want to be on time.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well, the
No,
warrant
well-
doesn't open until the 30th.
we'll make sure
Yeah.
that you are,
Yeah.
you know, we'll be prepared to have the articles all written and ready to go and, okay, yeah.
any other questions for any committee members?
I think there was a person that wanted to speak, right? Oh, we haven't got,
That's under-
we haven't got.
Yeah, we've got some other housekeeping to finish up.
Okay. I I think that's it for me for tonight. So thank you very much.
You correct? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
What are these?
We're in the housekeeping, I would assume now, right?
Yes.
We are, so. We need to appoint 2 people from the historic district and 2 people from CPC to oversee these projects. But I think I'm going to need to collect more information with Bill Furniture not being here tonight,
Okay.
to be able to work on that.
Mhm.
And yeah, Russell's missing.
Yeah.
He didn't call.
No,
So we will, bring this forward at the next meeting.
yes, if you'd like to.
Yeah.
Take a motion for that.
Do we have to do that as a motion?
You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We all agree?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any new or old business? I'll go around. Anyone? John? New or old business?
I'm good, Ed, thank you.
Okay, Betty, any new or old business?
No,
Okay, Len?
No, John's laying down.
Tim?
I'm good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Karen?
No, I'm good.
Okay. And of course, our next meeting will be July 11th at 5:30 PM here in the roll call meeting, and we will have remote option. And now again, public comment. Anybody for public comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, that was a good idea with different organizations and things like that, but.
Could you state your name and who?
Oh, my name is Joy Hurley and I work for Project Good and Bug Light and I'm the only employee. The reason that we actually came forward to you is because Plymouth, I was talking to them. And she basically said that Bug Light, was the first thing, and it's a huge pot. 1.5 million people come in, visitors that come in every year. And she said that, you should go to the CPA funds. So when we decided to do that, we were gonna break it down into different, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And then we decided to come for the 1.5. Now, I do have this, we're willing to put up 200,000. We've already gotten, if anyone wants to see this, we've already gotten
That part of the
50,000.
package?
But I think the reason I wanted to speak is because all the foundations that I'm talking to that I'm trying to get money for, they have all said to me that we need to have the town of Plymouth support. We need to have the community support before they will even consider funding.
Well, you have our support, you just don't have our money. And what we're saying,
Well, I wish.
You have our support. You can tell these groups that you're talking to that we will support the ability to do this if there's other communities that are getting involved.
that's right.
If there's 7 communities involved, the cost comes way down. For all 7 communities or 7 groups, or the federal government, town of
Okay,
Plymouth,
I think they'll
state
look.
of Massachusetts, the Coast Guard.
Let me make a suggestion. What you're hearing from these people is their definition of support is you have committed funds. That's not support. Support means that the town is willing to help you in this endeavor, but not alone. So my suggestion is you're before the wrong body for that. The body to go before is the select board. And they can or cannot say they will support this. That doesn't guarantee anything. It just says, we will support this, just like we're taking our time here tonight and listening to you about that. What Mr. Grandy is saying, what other people are saying is asking Plymouth to carry this burden alone. It's a non-starter. I mean, it's just a non-starter. And so I suggest you go, as I said earlier, go after these other communities. It doesn't hurt to go ask the conversation. You could go to all these fundings, these nonprofits, but go to Duxbury, go to Kingston, go to whatever communities you want and see if they'll listen to you. And if they listen to you, then you're one step further down the road of maybe getting some financial support from them. But I think if you're looking for a statement of support to go to these other funding groups, I think the committee that you need to go for is the select board. The only way we can give you here our verbal support, but the only way we can actually give you support is to take this article, send it before the town meeting, And as I said earlier, if we were to do that in its present form, the town meeting is not gonna vote for it.
Okay.
So,
No,
I mean, and
understand
that
what
would
you're
just, we
saying.
would spend all this time and all this energy. Submitting things for town meeting is not just, we have to go before the select board with this article, we have to go before A and F. We have to go to all the caucuses. It's a major undertaking for all of us who do this on a volunteer basis. Understand, none of us we're here on our own time doing this, and we're not complaining about that, but I think what you ought to do is try to get on the agenda of the select board in the next couple of months, if you can. They go on a little bit limited schedule for the summer, and talk to them about it and see what they think about it. John is our representative from the select board on this committee.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for your input.
I have a comment as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Betty.
So C Plymouth suggested that you come to CPC. Is C Plymouth putting in any money for this project?
Yeah, my eyebrows raised too.
Get all the groups to put money in when they, help them.
Yeah,
We
that-
can work with.
Yeah, that was very, big of Steve Plymouth.
It was an honest suggestion. I don't think there's
Yeah.
any agenda
No,
there.
no, I'm asking, because I mean,
No,
obviously,
no.
we're gonna have to find this money, from all different places. So,
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Anything from any members?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? All in
Second.
favor? Okay, Betty second,
Aye.
all in favor? Aye, thank you very
Aye.
much.